Okay. Let's walk on screen, get the Twitch page muted, get the tweet sent out, get our bot in here, and we should be good. Alright. Hello everyone, this is Chris Ingerson, and it is, I don't know why I was going to say August, April 13th, and this is the April 13th TextQuest Devstream. So, today, as you can see on the bottom of the screen, we are going to be working on finishing up the new CSV parser and moving on to custom adventure stuff. Specifically, there are some JSON parsing issues that I was noticing when we first load up all of the custom adventures. I want to fix that. And we will basically take it from there. There's going to be a couple of UI streamlining sort of bits that I want to do. There's a lot that needs to be done with the custom adventure stuff still, so we will not be wanting for material. Anyway, so to get started, we're going to go ahead and move to the CSV parser. I have broken the CSV parser out into its own project for now because it will compile faster there, and I won't have to wait like a minute every time I make a change to the code. It'll just compile pretty quickly. And that'll also let us write some unit tests, and also it'll let us mess around with Unity 2019 because 2019 is in release candidate now for 2019.1. So I am curious to see what it can do. I did have a chance to mess with this yesterday actually at work. And the major thing that I can tell, aside from like all of the icons being updated for a lot of things, is that you can basically hide things in the hierarchy without turning them off, which is kind of cool. So it's just kind of like in Maya how you can make certain things be invisible without straight up deleting them. So with this feature, it looks like you can basically hide objects, so you don't have to like try to click around them without turning them off. So that'll be pretty nice actually for a workflow. Although I have noticed there are a couple of weird things that happen, like the package manager. The package manager itself is fine, but there are times where if you install, I believe, like oh right, advanced is not on. Show preview packages. If you install like the AR Foundation and an AR Core and AR Kit XR plugins, then it just screams at you all the time because they put they do some custom menu additions that use project settings, and because project settings is a reserved thing in Unity, it freaks out, which is hilarious because that's Unity's own plugin freaking out Unity. But we're not working in AR, so we don't really have to deal with that. That's just kind of a funny thing that I noticed yesterday. So overall, 2019 seems pretty good so far, but I really haven't done anything much with it. Oh, I will say one thing if you are looking at 2019, Timeline is now a plugin. It's no longer, so if we go back to, I'm sorry, package manager. So you can see that Timeline is its own separate thing now. It's not built into the engine, which is probably for the best long term because that means they can update it independent of updating the engine. But that does mean if you're doing custom DLL stuff like we were doing at work, it becomes a huge pain if you have timeline related stuff because now you can't make DLLs with timeline in them because it will freak out. So that's something to be aware of if you're working with DLLs in Unity. But most people probably aren't, so that's not really much of an issue. Anyway, so we're gonna go ahead and get started with a test scene. I just ported this all over before the Devstream, so I spent like 30 minutes downloading everything. So we're going to go ahead and make a new test scene. We're going to go ahead and save this out. We'll call this CSV test. Let's go ahead and go up to scenes. Get rid of sample scene. Don't really need that. All right. And I also was changing our test a little bit. I haven't finished it entirely rewriting the tester. But so if you remember on Thursday night, we were working on a CSV test scene where we would basically output all of the keys to a label. And we're essentially going to do the same thing, except the only difference is now the label is going to be a row of elements in a vertical layout group. so that each row of the CSV will have its own distinct element, so we can kind of review that for accuracy. So let's get started by go ahead and say create UI canvas. We're just going to move these all onto one canvas because I don't like having a separate event system. Okay, we're also going to go ahead and do scale screen size. We'll set this to be 80 by 720, 0.5, not that it matters really. All right, so we're going to go ahead and on my main camera, I'm just going to plop CSV tester. We'll do this, and now I'm going to go ahead and create my testing area. So this is going to be pretty simple. We're just going to go ahead and have an image. We're going to stretch this. We're going to have this be anchored 0.5, then 25, 25, 25, oops, 25. We're going to go ahead and call that a panel. Actually, we'll call that like input panel. Okay, we're going to right click on that and say UI. We're going to create. Oh, nice. They have a button Text Mesh Pro now. That's kind of nice. We're going to go to Input Field, Text Mesh Pro. We're going to have this stretch the entire thing. Let's go ahead and adjust this. So we're going to make our background here, make this black by default. We'll make it highlight to like a dark gray. We'll make the press color be like a slightly darker gray. Oh, that's new too. They added a selected color? That's interesting. So they broke out the functionality of highlighted color on selected things. So in previous versions of Unity, 2018 and earlier, when you clicked on an object that has navigation set to automatic and not none, once you basically are done clicking on it, it will stay selected and it will keep its highlighted color. But it looks like they've broken out selected color to be its own thing, which is kind of cool. So I'm actually going to keep that, and I'm going to turn this back on to automatic because I'm curious to see if that looks correct. Actually, I'm just going to straight up make this blue so it's very obvious. Because that's kind of cool that they broke that out. That's nice. Anyway, let's go ahead and real quick just see what this looks like. So we're just going to say a test case. Okay, we want our color to be white probably when we're typing. So we're just going to go ahead and get rid of this. Let's go down here to our text. We're going to make this be white. Let's go back up here and we're just going to type real quick. Test again. Probably we'll change our point size to, let's do 24. Why does it look so rough? Okay, well, it's Text Mesh Pro, so it should be fine. We'll bump that up probably one more time to, let's do 36. Oh, that's way too big. There we go. That looks good enough. Okay, so that's our input field. We're going to go ahead and do dash. I guess I'll just call it input field, actually. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and just duplicate this. We're going to delete our input field. We're going to call this output panel. We're going to go ahead and set this to be 0.5 and 1. Then we're going to go ahead and, oh, by the way, we're going to be doing coding today. Also, I should probably, then we're going to go ahead and make sure that I was actually talking. Okay, next thing we're going to do real quick is going to be to create UI. We're going to do one more, we're just going to do scroll view. We're going to have that sized up all the way. We are going to go, I don't think I need a horizontal view. Should be fine, so let's go ahead and get rid of that. We're going to go ahead and change that to be none. We're going to get rid of horizontal scrolling. We're going to make this clamped. We're going to give roll sensitivity of 15. We'll give our vertical 0. We're going to change our content here to be black, fully opaque. Don't have to worry about that. That way it just lines up. And then content is going to be layout. It's going to be a vertical layout group. Oh, this is new too. Use child scale. And yet they still don't have tooltips. Why do they do that constantly? Jeez, Unity. Okay, so I think we want these checked off, that unchecked. I am assuming use child scale means that it's going to scale the content size fitter to match child scale. That cannot be correct, which must mean that use child scale is going to take into account child scale when expanding it. That's what I'm going to assume that means. Because if you used a child scale to scale up the parent, then it would just be weird. Okay, we'll give ourselves a spacing of like, I don't know, 5. Padding probably about 10, 10, 10, 10. That's pretty good across the board, I think. All right, let's go ahead and real quick, we have to make our CSV test element prefab. So we're just going to go ahead and say new game object. We're going to call this CSV test element. Okay, we're going to go ahead and add a layout element. We're going to say min height of 50. We're going to set our content, by the way, because I forgot to do this, we need to add a content size fitter, which is going to expand vertically to the min size. Okay, let's go ahead and go up here. Fly in a little bit, or I would like to anyway. So, all right, let's go ahead, and I'm just going to add, not CSV tester, CSV test element to this. We're going to go ahead and add an image. I'm going to make that fit. We are going to just call that background. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and say UI text mesh pro. Oh, interesting. They did change the name. I did notice that with the input field. So now TextMesh Pro labels are not called like TextMesh Pro text. They're just called text TMP. That's a little bit better, I guess. Although I still prefer the old names, like the original. When UGUI first started, way back in like 4.6, I think. No, it wasn't UGUI that did that. UGUI, I think, might have always called them text, but NGUI, back before UGUI existed, created labels, and they always called them label, and I always thought that label sounded better than text, because text is not really indicative of what it is, it just is what it contains, whereas label is a thing that contains text. It's a weird naming convention that I've always stuck with. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and change our background to be like grayish, like that. Our label here, we're going to make 24, I think. Let's go ahead and make this aligned like that. It will be aligned to the left, and then we're going to go ahead and just give it like an offset of 5, 5, 5, and 5. I think we'll be fine. Okay, so let's go ahead and just call this label. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up CSV test element, and I'm going to do 2 things. Crap. I guess we'll call it that. We're going to come up to here, and we're going to say using Unity engine.ui. I just do this for this is a purely aesthetic thing that I'm about to do, but I do it because it makes it a little bit easier to parse the rows, basically. Not parse in the technical sense, but like read it. Private image background image is equal to null. Null only has 2 L's. And then we're just going to say if row index modulo 2 is equal to 0, then we're going to say background image dot color is equal to color. We're just going to do that for now. So we're going to go ahead and say serialize field private color color 01 is equal to color.gray. Serialize field. Oops. Private color 02 is equal to color.gray. Not that it matters. Is equal to color 01. Else background image color is equal to color 02. Hiccups. Color 02, like that. All right, let's see here. So that's just a little visual thing to make it a little bit easier for us to see these. All right, so let's go ahead and assign that, And these are basically the same, so we're just going to make that a little bit darker like that. Okay, that's all we need to do there, so let's go ahead and turn that into a prefab. Create folder. We're going to make this prefabs. Boom. Okay, get rid of that. We're going to go ahead and go up to main camera. Assign our CSV test element. Let's open this back up because we need to do a couple of things. So we're going to say using system.collections.generic. Alright, and we're going to come down to here and say private enumerator. Scroll, delay, return null. And then we're going to go ahead and come up here and say public scroll rect scroll is equal to null, and then on top of that we're going to need public rect transform. Grid is equal to null. Okay, pretty straightforward. And then we're going to need to come down here and say private list CSV test element. Elements is equal to new test element, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and say for int I equals 0, I is less than elements.count I plus plus destroy elements I.gameObject. And then we're just going to say elements.clear. Okay, and so to start, what we're going to do here is set scroll dot normalized vertical position is equal to, I believe we want to say 1, because I think 1 is the top. Oh, cool, a regression, really. Nice, Unity, a regression. So in previous versions of Unity, this actually did have a tooltip. So when you hovered over it, it told you what it was. I'm reasonably sure that 1 is top, 0 is bottom. So that's sad, though, that they got rid of that. Go figure. Anyway, so for this, we're going to go ahead and just pull string. We'll just call these keys is equal to CSV parser get keys, and then CSV.text, and then we're just going to say CSV test element is equal to instantiate test element, and then grid. We're going to say element.initialize. Oh, right. That's not going to work very well now, is it? Go figure. Well, I suppose I can kind of cheat. So we're just going to say dictionary string key key dictionary. Terrible. Is equal to new. Man. Still coughing. Okay, it's going to be key dictionary and then 0. And all we're going to do here is we're just going to say for int I equals 0, I is less than keys.length I plus plus. This is a terrible thing to do, but it's all for testing. So we're just going to say key dictionary of keys of I is equal to keys of I. Simple. All right. So let's go ahead and test that out real quick. Oh, I suppose I can do that too. So let's go ahead and say public text mesh. Oops. Text mesh pro UGUI. And we'll say, oh no, it's not that. It's actually text mesh pro. Right. It's tmp underscore input field. Input is equal to null, and all we're going to do on start is say input is equal to csv.text, input.text. And then this is actually going to be, I believe, input.text. That's what I want there. Okay, so let that compile real quick. All right, look at that lightning speed. So here is our grid. Here is our scroll view. Here is our input field. All right, so let's see what this looks like. Well. Really? That's interesting too. So do you actually do contain nothing? How interesting. Curiouser and curiouser. All right, let's debug. Debug.log keys.to delimited string. If that doesn't come out as anything, then it's something to do with loading the text into here first for some reason. Not entirely sure why that would matter, but that's all I can really think of. Let's try that again. Interesting. Also, it doesn't really look like whatever. Cool. So let's change this back to csv.text and see if that works. Keep in mind that I have not changed anything in terms of the parser. It's the exact same parser that we had on Thursday night. Cool. Well, that is not exactly great because they should. Oh, duh. Because I'm stupid. Just like the tiny problem that we had on Thursday. It's pretty hard for you to get keys from nothing. Let's try that again. There we are. That works a lot better. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and let that go. And by the way, the first thing we're going to do actually is we're not going to expand from the keys yet. We need to change this because I did a stupid thing, which is what I used to do. I created a substring from our CSV based on its indexes, and then I formatted that substring to return a new substring or a new string, which means that instead of creating one string at the last minute, like when I need it, I create a string just to create another string. So that's not a good use of resources. That's a waste of time. So that means that this format CSV text needs to take a string CSV, excuse me, the total CSV text, which would be this value that gets parsed in, and then it needs a start and end index. That way we do not create two strings every time we want to format a string, we just create the one. So we're going to change this up a little bit. So let's go ahead. We're going to change this, rename. Well, so this entire approach is actually going to be what makes this difficult. So we're going to keep this function for now, and I'm just going to make a new one because it's going to be pretty different. So we're going to say private static string format CSV text string is going to be our CSV int start index and then int end index, and I think that's all we're going to need to start. All right, so basically what we're going to do here is we're going to say we're going to follow pretty much this exact same amount of logic, but and we are still going to have to use a string builder, but instead of iterating through CSV value, we're going to iterate through the actual CSV string. So first things first, we're going to go ahead and say if that sucks. Okay. So this, because we're no longer iterating through a double quote, or we're not iterating through the basic string, like just the string value for the row that we want to parse, or the value we want to parse, we now have to manually iterate through and check to see if we ever get two quotes right after another, or one another. So, man, that's going to suck. Okay. Um, so let me think. Yeah. Okay. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say, wow, that's terrible. So we're just gonna go ahead and say int index is equal to start index, and then we're gonna say int open count is equal to count is equal to 0, and with this we're gonna go ahead and say let me think. How do we want to handle this? So it's not as simple as just searching to see if it contains those quotes anymore. I can't look for the entire. Oh, excuse me. I can't look through the entirety of the CSV because if I do that, it will essentially like it won't actually tell me accurate information if the CSV value that I'm looking at contains a double quote. So I need to iterate through from the start index and basically just check. But if I'm doing that, I might as well just use a string. It sucks because basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to avoid just doing the string builder for everything. It would be nice if I could just first iterate through them. But I mean, honestly, if I'm iterating through all of them anyway, I might as well just use a string builder, I guess, instead of calling substrings. So that sucks that I can't quite do that as fast, but that's not terrible, at least. Okay. Boo. Well, then that means we're gonna change our approach. So we're just gonna say, let's get rid of this. So we're just gonna say string builder output is equal to new string builder. And it's gonna be end index minus start index. That seems like that would be about right. Can't possibly be any longer than that. Let's go ahead and actually wrap that. And we're going to say -2 because we know it's at the very least going to be 2 characters shorter. And then all we're going to do is say for int I equals 0. I is less, I'm sorry, not I. I is equal to start index plus 1. I is less than end index minus 1, I believe is what we want. And I plus plus. I think that actually might be -2 now that I think about it. Because, yeah, the actual end index is 1 past it, so -2. Okay. So once we do that, we're essentially just going to be doing this. So we'll say if that, and that, and then we'll just call return output.toString. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and comment that out, and we're going to say keys of I is equal to format CSV text, and CSV start index is of I, end indexes of I. Yeah, I think that's what I want. I suppose we could have totally made that a length, but whatever. All right. So let's try that output now. It should give me the values that I would expect. Let's go ahead. Cough, cough. I'm dying for some reason. Don't know why. All right, let's go ahead and play. It should parse. Okay, not correct. So I do want to say -1, not -2. That makes sense. I was saying is less than, not less than or equal to. So that actually works. Okay, there we are. It looks like key 1, key 2, key 3. Yep, that is correct. All right. We didn't get any errors, so cool. So that is our new format, CSV. Let's go ahead and get rid of these. So it kind of sucks that like no matter what, like regardless of if it actually contains double quotes, we're going to use this string builder method. But the alternative is I would have to loop through all of the characters and examine them anyway. And if I'm doing that, I might as well do this string builder output, I suppose. So, all right. So we'll let that go. So that should be smartly passing them around now. No need to worry about it. Cool. So all we need to do now is pretty much a similar feature to this, but it's not just going to be our keys anymore. All right, so we're going to come up here. We have our CSV data. Okay, and for this, we're going to go ahead and say string. Yeah, I guess I need that, don't I? So keys is equal to get keys. Oh, I don't have any text there. String CSV. Okay. And then from there, we're essentially just going to do the same thing that we were doing here. So we're going to have a bunch of start indexes, a bunch of end indexes. Grab like all of this. It's basically duplicate code now that I think about it, which is not great, and I could probably figure out a better way to not have duplicate codes. But all right. So for this, we're going to go ahead and so we're going to copy this. We're going to paste this. We're going to say, ooh, right. Here is where it gets to be fun. So in the past, what I did is I basically split the massive CSV string based off of newline chars, which, as we've discussed, is not a valid way of actually parsing CSVs because you can have content in CSVs that have newline chars in them. So if you just parse by splitting the CSV values along new lines, assuming that each line will only have one at the end, you're going to break your CSV. So what we need to do is we essentially need to figure out when we get to the end of our row and then parse all of that into a row, and then we're going to have to keep going until we're done, basically. So that is going to be interesting. So we don't want to do while CSV. Well, actually, we can. So let me see here. We're going to come up to here, and I'm going to say if done parsing break. So done parsing, right, happens here. So what we want to have happen is instead of having done parsing be flagged, well, no, we can go ahead and flag it. But instead of calling break, what we're going to do, we're going to come down here and we're going to say we need to create our new row because we're done parsing that particular row because that gets set. So we're going to skip that end of row. And here is actually where it gets difficult too. We do not care about the first row, so that complicates things. I suppose we could parse the first row anyway, add the keys and then remove them, but that's wasted effort. But I'm not really sure what a good way to do this would be without, because we have to iterate through them anyway. We have to iterate character by character. So let's go ahead. Excuse me. Let's go ahead and just add it, and then we'll remove it at the end. So that's one cycle that we could avoid. We'll figure out how to avoid that later. For now, I'm just going to focus on this. All right, so we're done parsing, which means that we now have our indexes and like all of our start indexes, all of our end indexes, and yada, 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 yada. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to come down to here, and we're going to say dictionary string, and then we're going to say row is equal to new dictionary string. Now, this should have the exact same count. And actually, I think I can give it a capacity, right? Yeah. So this would be keys.length for its capacity. So this count for the dictionary should be the exact same as the keys length, because you can't have more values than you have keys, and you can't have less than you have keys. So we should be good there, which means that we can do this. For int I equals 0, I is less than keys.length I plus plus. Then we're going to say row of keys of I is equal to, here's where that gets fun. So we're essentially going to do this. So if start indexes of I does not equal end indexes of I, and CSV start indexes of I is equal to blah, 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 blah. That's all correct. Format CSV text. Okay, so we're going to say row of keys of I is equal to that, or row of keys of I is just equal to our substring there. Okay, once we have that, we're going to say rows.add row, and then we're going to clear out all of our start indexes. So we're going to say start indexes is dot clear, end indexes dot clear, and we're going to go ahead and just set our start index is going to be equal to index, because why not? And that should get everything that we need. I think that's actually all the code that we needed. Which probably means that I can, let's see, are we using keys anywhere before this? No. Which means that if we could probably cut down on duplicate code by, instead of having get keys be a separate function, which we'll probably keep it as a separate function for now, in case I want to access that later. But all I'm going to do, oh, and also I need to do this. So we're going to say if csv.length is equal to 0, return rows. No need to go through all that parsing. So essentially what I'm thinking that we would do, we would just do a quick check here to see if keys has any length. And if it doesn't, then what we'll do is we'll set keys to be a new list of strings based on however long this row is. And then, oh, that gets so complicated. Not really complicated, but we would essentially just generate our keys here instead of generating a row. Because then that means that we don't have a redundant cycle in there. We just pick up our keys like we normally would. And it means that I don't have to figure out how to skip the first line. Win-win. Okay, so for now, let's go ahead and see if this works, first of all. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to just comment like all of that. And then we're going to go ahead and just say list dictionary string rows is equal to new list blah blah blah, and then I'm sorry, it's not that. We're going to go ahead and say is equal to csv parser dot parse, and then csv dot text. That's not right. It's going to be input dot text. Input dot text. Okay, and then for int I equals 0, I is less than rows dot count I plus plus. We're just going to say instantiate, oops, hold on. CSV test element is equal to instantiate test element followed by grid, and then we're going to say elements dot initialize followed by rows of I followed by I, and then we're going to say elements dot add element. Okay, much easier to do all that because it's all a loop. All right, let's see. That should work in theory. And if that works, that means that our parser is going to work. Hooray! No errors, so let's give it a shot. Cool. That did not work. We have an argument out of range exception. Length cannot be less than 0. Also interesting, it's highlighting specific things in blue. I don't know what that means. Oh, but you're not going to open that up, are you? Cool. So it looks like CSV parser at line 91. Line 91. Okay, curious. Let's see. So it's saying length cannot be less than 0, which must mean that my end indexes is less than that. Parameter name dot length. Let's see. Parser refresh. I mean, okay, so it's 91. So does that mean that my end index minus my start index is less than 1? Let's debug that, I guess. Debug.log. We'll say keys of I. I'm just going to go string.format. String.format. Get this out of the way. See what's going on here. Okay. So we're looking at, we'll say 0. We're going to add that in. We'll just say 1, and then 2, and then let's, not that. I can't type. Okay, we're going to say start indexes of I, end indexes of I. Okay. Those should be the same length. So the number of start and end indexes should match the number of keys, because that's how the keys work. There's basically one start index and one end index per value. And again, values have to match up to the length of the keys. So it shouldn't be that they don't match up, but that would be what my guess is. Oh. Oh! I know what it is. So I'm assuming, wait, what? So we have 2 of these values actually that come in, 16 and 16, which is probably the empty string. Interesting, interesting, interesting. So it looks like, yeah, our start index is 28 and 27. So that's interesting. How on earth can that happen? Start indexes. Let's go to your start index. Add end index plus plus. If it's a new line, add index. Start index, end index. End index is equal to index. If it's less than that, start index is equal to index. So it shouldn't really be possible for that to be the case, which means that it's got to be something tiny that I'm doing that's stupid. The only thing I can think of is this, where we walk backwards, but that doesn't make sense. So the value is, I suppose we could try to reverse engineer this real quick. This is going to suck. So the value is 28 for our start index and 27. Excuse me. This is going to be difficult. So I'm assuming, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. Interesting. So 28 is the start of the very first value. which to me means that I'm probably not clearing this properly. Hold on, I must be forgetting something else down here. So we call start indexes.clear, end indexes.clear, open count is equal to 0, done parsing. Oh, I also got to set done parsing equal to false. So we're going to go ahead and say done parsing is equal to false. Let's try that. Something tiny, it always is. And that would totally make sense because since I didn't flag done parsing as false, that means that as soon as it went through to iterate one more time, it just was like, oh, hey, we're done, yay! And it's like, that's not correct. Although, well, that would also explain why we had an index out of range exception. Okay, let's try this again. No. Same problem. 93 this time. Oh, because I moved it down. Same problem. 27. And actually, what's bad about that is if done parsing is set to be false again, then... here we are. Here's our problem. Okay. I'm not calling go to default, which needs to happen. We don't use index after this, do we? Yes. Okay. We do, but it's in a fine spot. Okay. So what we need to do here is I just need to grab this, change this a little bit, and call that, I think. Which is unfortunate because that means that we do actually have to iterate through multiple times, which, unfortunate. All right, let's try that again. Okay, so it's a little cramped. Let's go ahead and change our CSV test element a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and change this. We're going to make this so that our height can expand based off of whatever our label is. So I'm going to go ahead and add a layout group, vertical layout group, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to say add a layout group. Oh man, you're just no fun. Okay. We're going to make this be another layout group. It's going to be our content size fitter. Vertical fit is going to be preferred size. We're going to add some padding here. So we're going to just add padding of like, I think I did 5 by 5 by 5 by 5. It's probably fine. Okay. And we're going to have to do the same thing up here. So we're just going to go ahead and add a, let's see, we'll do a layout group, vertical layout group again. Same thing, allow that to expand. And for this, I don't think we actually want a layout element. We're going to go ahead and remove that. And we're just going to add a content size fitter to that. Same thing where it's going to be a preferred size. So now that should match up exactly. Cool. Let's go ahead and go back here. We are going to set this to be not min size, but preferred size. Let that go through. So now all of our labels should appropriately expand. There we go. So those are our 3 rows. I think that's all we had, right? It is very difficult to tell, but I believe we have 3 rows, yes. So let's go ahead. We have key 1. Oh, interesting. We did not get to the end. So let's see here. Trying different actions on objects can yield a variety of effects. The apple is very different from take apple, for example. Then comma, lorem, comma, 1, comma, ipsum. That is, I believe, correct. Yes. So the second one ends on lorem ipsum with a new line. Where did our third one go? Curiouser and curiouser. So we seem... Well, we're not stuck in an infinite loop because I can click around. We didn't get any Stack Overflow exceptions, which means I must be setting up my loop incorrectly. Which... I know what it is. Okay. So what I didn't do is do a safety check here that basically says if our index is greater than or equal to our CSV length after this while loop, we need to do this thing again, which is gross, but the truth. All right, let's go ahead and I might break that out into its own little function. So, excuse me. I'm gonna come down here. I'm gonna say private static dictionary of string and string values generate rows. So for that, we're gonna need a list of ints. So that'll be our start indexes. A list of ints, which will be our end indexes. I have to pass the keys. That's fine. So we're going to say string CSV, then string keys is equal to that. All right. So we're pretty much going to do this. We're going to go ahead and grab this. And then we will say, copy this, come down to here. Is that everything I needed? Good. Get rid of you. Return row. Okay. And then I'm going to get rid of all of, actually I'm not even going to need that. I'm just going to be able to call, get rid of this. We're going to call generate rows, which I probably should just rename generate row, CSV, keys, start indexes, end indexes. I'm reasonably confident that that's what we need. Oops. Okay, let's go ahead and rename this to generate row. Hit save. And the next thing I need to do is when we get to the bottom here, we need to add our last row, which is just going to be rows.add generate row CSV keys start indexes and indexes. Okay, and I guess I'll do a safety check there. Nah, that's pointless, I think. Okay, so let's try that again. Because I believe what was happening there is basically we were getting to the end of the document, which does not have a new line, and then just ending. So let's go ahead and apply. Cool. Index out of range. Where do you go? Parser 183. 183. Okay. And what do you think your indexes are exactly? Oh. Wait. Yes. I bet that my end indexes are not set properly. Okay, so that means that I need to... Oh, gross! Okay. So that means in addition to this, I need to do end indexes dot add. I don't know if it needs to be index or index minus 1. It's probably index minus 1. Okay, so let's try that. Because if it doesn't reach, again, a new line character, then it doesn't know to mark the end index. So, oh, okay, we also need to add our start index apparently. So we're going to say start indexes, add start index, okay. And I think we'll be good there. Start index, yep, okay. Let's try that. So basically we were just, yeah, not getting our last start and end index set up. Let's try that. And okay, not that. Ooh, but we do have a different error now. Index was outside the bounds of the array. 185 from 88, which is where this is, yeah. All right, 185, correct. Let's figure out what you think you are exactly. to say debug.log. We're going to have to do this in sequence too, which sucks. So we're going to log out what it thinks I is. Then we're going to go ahead and debug.log string.format. We're just going to say 0, 1. This is going to be our start indexes.count followed by our end indexes.count. And once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and debug.log. Gross. Okay. So I'm actually going to move this to be here because we only need to know that once. And then here, we're going to go ahead and debug.log start indexes of I. And then after that, we're going to debug.log end indexes of I. Okay. Pretty confident that is where we want to be. I'm kind of assuming that, oh, and also, before I forget anything else, I'm also going to go ahead and change this to be, we're going to log csv.length. That way I can make sure that one of these values is not past that. If that's the case, then it means that the end index value is 1 greater, probably, and that would cause our problems. So we'll have to do -2 when we set it up. So let's find out. Okay, let's go ahead and hit play. Yeah, I was worried about that. Okay, 365 and 3. Okay. 365. Okay. So end index is incorrect. We're also going to turn off collapse so that can be absolutely correct. Yep. And wait, hold on. No. 384, 385 is the start index, which means it's doing a backwards thing again. 3, 84, 83. Okay, so I don't need to add it then? But I do, because I should have 3. Because there's key 1, key 2, blank, and then key 3, actually. Which means that I'm short 1. Right? Yeah. 385 is the total length, which does mean that 384 is correct. Which means that at some point, these should be the same value. No, because that's the key. Okay, so it says that we have 4. Oh, that's right, because it's 0-based index. Duh. I was doing the index, not the count. Okay, so that's correct, 3. But, as you can tell, we have the wrong end index at the end here, which is problematic. Okay. So we're going to jump back here. And let's see, start index. So what else am I doing here? Setting that equal to index. Go to default. We're not done parsing. Right. Hold on. Let me think. Start index is equal to index. That should not be the case. Okay. So what should be happening here? So this is our last row, which is this. Which means that our last value should be nothing from the looks of it. Okay. So how could it be? Okay. I know what's happening here then. So our problem is Actually, hold on. 385. How did that happen? Start index is equal to index plus 1, which would be done there, not down here. Maybe I don't need this to be index minus 1? I suppose that would make sense. Also, now that I think about it, let's go ahead and go down to generate row. I think I should have an explicit check here for this instead of having to be grouped in. Because there's no reason for me to create a substring if they're the exact same when I could just add my own empty string. So let's go ahead and get rid of this. I'm just going to say if that, or rather if they are equal. And we're just going to say row of keys of I is equal to an empty string. Which I guess I could do string.empty. Not that it really matters, but okay. So that's that. And then we're going to say blah, blah, blah. Okay. Else it's a substring thing. Okay. So let's go ahead and try that. I think that will work. Okay. Compiles so fast. Nope. Still got an index out of range exception. Which makes sense because so that's line 195. Line 195. Time out. Time out. I am calling bull on this because 385 is equal to 385. So why didn't this catch it? Oh, because I didn't do else, because I'm stupid. How embarrassing. Man, I wish. Cool. Still 195, huh? What are you talking about? 385 and 385 are equal to each other. So how does this not catch itself? What the heck? I do not understand this. 385 and 385. And 3. And yet, somehow, it's getting past this. Let's try that again. It could be that it was. Oh my god, it was. I don't know why that happens sometimes. That's infuriating. So I've noticed in Unity specifically, for some reason, sometimes when you edit a static class and you hit play, it's like the code didn't refresh. Like it just didn't recompile. Like the compilation says that it's done, but then you run it and it doesn't work. But then if you run it again without making any changes, it works. I don't know why. That's super weird, but that's okay. Fine. So cool. Cool. So that works. Jeez, what a terrible, terrible time. Let's see here. As I slowly die from coughing. Let's see if I can change this to wrap real quick. Let's see if my headset will cooperate with me. Line type, single line. We'll do multi-line. There, okay, that's why. So I'm going to change that real quick to multi-line new line. Let's go ahead and save. So cool. I think our parser is now parsing everything correctly, as we would expect. So it looks like we have our keys. It looks like we have our values. It looks like everything is parsing as you would expect. You can say 1 ipsum, and then we have our 2 lorem, then new line, ipsum. It is escaping our, or it's parsing our escaped quotes correctly, which is nice. It is allowing us to use commas correctly. That's good. Type hint. It's clear. It's trimming off our wrapping quotes. I should probably have. I guess never mind. I was gonna say like I should probably have some values that don't have quotes, but some of them don't have quotes, so I think we're good. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that it looks like we're good. I'm gonna make a quick optimization to try and do the key parsing like I was talking about, where instead of having so instead of just doing rows.add, we're gonna do a quick check here to say if keys keys.length is equal to 0, else we're gonna do all this fun stuff. Oh, we'll just do that, I guess, because that's what we still need to reset all of those values. So I'm going to comment this out, and we're just going to say it's equal to new string of 0. Nothing is going to happen with that until we get to our first value, basically. And that means that once we have our rows, okay, so we can't, gross. So yeah, I essentially have to manually build those, which means that I need to do this, basically. Okay, so yep, we're going to do this basically. Is equal to new string start indexes dot count. I think this might actually be everything that I needed to do. Okay, so let's try running this real quick. And what this should do in theory is it means that we will no longer output our keys as part of our dictionary or our list of dictionaries. Because it will basically catch them as the first row and then parse them correctly and make them keys. And then every subsequent row will then have the keys added to them. Which I guess actually means that I could add an option to parsing CSVs to include the header, which that could be interesting. There we go. We have our 3. It looks like everything came out correctly. I suppose I should probably do a quick debug. Let's get rid of these things. And this. So we can get rid of this. And let's see. Let's go ahead and save and add comments to these. Formats a CSV value to strip escaped chars and trim wrapping quotes. Okay, the full CSV string. The start index of the value. The end index of the value within the CSV string. We're going to go ahead and copy that. Okay, don't need to return. Okay. Generates. I like to try and comment my code with XML comments as much as I can, just because it makes it much easier if I have to come back later and fix stuff. I can more easily kind of look it over and just at a glance tell what each function does and what each parameter is. So we're going to say generates a dictionary of strings using the expected keys and start and is actually for a row inside a CSV string. Okay, and maybe I should call that like a line. Okay, so this is going to be, again, the full CSV string. We're just going to try to copy the keys for the CSV. List of start indexes for all values in this row of the CSV. List of end indexes for all values in this row. Okay. Returns an array of the keys used by the CSV. Man, I really wish I knew why I keep coughing. It's terrible. It's the consumption. I swear. It's gotta be tuberculosis. Just need to get a handkerchief and do a little like and see the blood. Have the full trope set up. Alright, so we're gonna go ahead and say this is, again, the full CSV. Full CSV string. Alright. Full CSV string. Parses a CSV into a list of... I wonder if I can actually do... Can I do string, or are you going to complain if I do that? Oh, sadness. Alright. I was hoping I could do that. Into a list of dictionary of strings and strings. Terrible. Parses the CSV into a list of dictionaries of strings and strings. With each dictionary representing one line of the CSV. Okay. String. Okay. Terrible. Parses, let's see what that looks like. Parses a CSV string into a list of dictionaries of strings and strings, with each dictionary representing one line of the CSV string. Sure, why not? And you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and just say, comma, bool include keys is equal to false. Let's go ahead. We're gonna grab this, paste that, and we're gonna say if true will include the CSV's keys as the first element in the returned list. Okay. If true will include the CSV's keys as the first element in the returned list. Full CSV string. Okay. So that's going to be false by default because, well, there's no real reason for it not to be. And that means all we have to do here is say, after we get our keys, we're just going to say if include keys. Then we'll say rows.add CSV keys start indexes and indexes. Oh, right. Duh. Generate row. I forgot to actually call the function that I needed to call. And real quick in the CSV tester, I'm just going to add a quick public bool include keys is equal to false. We're going to grab this and then include keys. Okay. And while that's compiling, I'm actually going to check out CSV header. I want to make sure that I'm using the correct. Okay, so they are called headers, not keys. Okay, so it's both. I guess that means it's one of those wonderful things in programming where it's whatever you want to call it. Um, I might change it over to header because that's what my old parser used, and that's kind of what I'm used to. So let's go ahead and clear this. Hit play. Okay, so we shouldn't have them to start. Let's go ahead and go back to here. Let's select this. We're going to check that off, and then I'm going to go ahead and say refresh outputs, and then we get our extra key. All right, and let's go ahead and uncheck that and try it one more time, and boom, it's perfect. All right. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and quickly rename those. CSV parser. Let's rename this to include headers. Header values as the first element. Return list. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and name this to headers. Okay. I'll rename this as get headers. The headers header values used by the CSV. Okay, we're going to rename this to headers. Headers. Is it just called headers? I guess it's just called a header, not a head. Well, yeah, so header values is correct, not headers. But, whatever. All right, so format CSV text. Cool. So, coughing. So I do have this separate function, which, all right, it's fine that they're separate functions, I guess. It sucks that I have duplicate code, but there is a slight difference in them, I guess. So I'll just have to live with it. It just sucks because that's not an insignificant chunk of code. It's what? Let's see here. It's pretty much about this. So 34 to 78. So that's what, 44 lines of code that I could reduce if I could figure out a way to consolidate it. But it's all right. All right. So let's go ahead. I think we're pretty much good with our CSV parser. I'm trying to think of any unit tests that I can really write for it, but I'm not really sure because I would have to write a bunch of custom functionality, which is it's always a mixed bag. Let's go ahead and let that compile. Make sure there are no errors, and then I guess we can try to write some unit tests real quick, just to make sure that it works. And because I do want to try to make sure that my CSV parser always works. So it's good when you're writing systemic things like parsers to just write a couple of unit tests. That way, whenever you make changes to the parser, you can run some tests real quick to make sure that run a smoke test, make sure that nothing's on fire. So let's go ahead and save. Let me go ahead and clear this out. We are going to have a fun time with this, I can tell you that. So we're going to go ahead and have a folder called an editor folder because that's where most of our unit tests are going to be. We're going to go ahead and say create testing. I believe we want to make a C# test script. This is going to be called, I guess very generically, CSV parser unit tests. I don't really know what else to call it, so we'll just do that. When we do that, we're going to go ahead and create assembly wait, hold on. I thought there was a way to do this, but not. Okay. So we're going to make an assembly definition. I'm going to call this sleepy owl dot csv dot unit tests. This is a test assembly. This is, let's see, it's going to need to reference NUnit. Really? Really, 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 really? How interesting. Well. Not that. Package manager, text message pro. Really? How curious. Let's go ahead and minimize you. Maybe because I have to hit apply. Okay. How curious. Well, I suppose the thing I have to do here then is we're going to go ahead and come down here. I'm going to right click, create, assembly definition. I'm going to go ahead and call this sleepy owl dot CSV, I guess. Probably the best thing that I can do. Let's see, we don't have any references. That should all be fine. Let's come back here to unit tests. Come back here. We're going to go ahead and apply a reference to sleepyowl.csv. Let's hit apply. That should fix our problems. Or not, because I need to do TextMesh Pro reference down here. TextMesh Pro. Man, unit tests take. Seems like that setup could be streamlined a little bit. I'm not really sure why it takes so much effort. All right, let's go ahead and load this up. Okay. There we go. All right, so we can get rid of. I'm pretty sure I can get rid of this. Don't really need it. We can get rid of this. All right. So this is going to be category CSV. General, I think, is what it's going to be by default. Let's get rid of this. Okay. And so this is going to be interesting. We're going to need a couple of things. I guess the first thing to start off is going to be parse empty. Tests if the CSV parser can properly parse an empty. I can't spell string. Okay, and all that's going to mean is that we do this essentially. Actually, you know what? So we're going to say assert dot r equal 0 and CSV parser dot parse. It's going to be an empty thing dot count. Let's go ahead and go to this. I need to make sure that if this is nothing. Okay, yeah, cool. So I did add that. That's right, because I remember adding that. Which probably means I can actually move this headers down to here. And the reason that I'm moving it to there is because if we do parse an empty CSV, there's no reason for us to spin up the extra memory it requires to, or the extra resources, I guess, to generate this empty string array. So might as well move that down below that check. And so it doesn't need to be used before it. Okay. So that's probably good. Let's go. I think I want to do like test of, and then it's like, I think it's a type of CSV parser. Is that correct? Yes. Oh, can't. There. Let's go ahead and save that. Let that go. That should parse. Okay, compiled. Real quick, let's go ahead and go to Window. It's one of these things. Test runner. Right, we got to do that too. So we got to say any platform, deselect all, editor only. Are you gonna work with me here? Okay, jeez. Ah! Let's go ahead and run. Hooray! Let's go ahead and clear that. Okay, so the next thing that I need to do, this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. I'm going to need to create a resource that I can find in the editor through code. This is something that I've done before. If you've seen me do the JSON unit tests, I believe I did something similar, although I might have just manually coded all those strings. But because CSVs are really annoying to create through, I mean, they're not terrible, I guess. It would just be better if I could, run some massive ones. But all right. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go create a C# script, and this is going to be called, what do I want to call you? CSV parser test utility. I probably shouldn't have that be in the, yeah, okay. So I'm going to go ahead and create C# script, and this is going to be CSV parser test data. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and open this up. This is going to be a scriptable object. This is going to be in tests, which I probably should really rename unit tests, but whatever. We're going to say create asset menu, file name is equal to nothing, menu name is equal to nothing. Okay, and this is going to be SOS CSV parser test. We'll just go ahead and do this. CSV parser test data. SOS unit tests. CSV test data. Okay. And all this is really going to do is have a reference to a bunch of text assets. Oops, not text alignment. Text asset. We'll just call this like numbers test equal to null. I don't really know what I'm going to use in there right now. But it's just going to be a bunch of different text assets that we test. Let's go ahead and let that go. Create a test utility. Okay, so this is going to be static. This is going to be in the tests namespace. This is not going to be from mono. We're going to say using Unity Editor. We're going to say initialize on load. After that, we get the fun thing. We're going to say public CSV parser. Oops. Public CSV parser test utility. Right, I gotta make that static. Sorry. And here's where it gets fun. So I want to say private. Excuse me. The cough, the consumption. Static CSV parser test data. Instance is equal to null. And here is where we do all the fun stuff. So we essentially want to make sure that our instance is kept up to date. And what that's going to do is basically we are going to, whenever the code compiles, we're going to look through our entire project for a specific asset. And then we will try to load that asset into memory as this instance. So that means that we're going to come down to here. We're going to say public static CSV parser test data instance get return instance. Okay, let that go. Compile. I'm going to let that compile real quick because I need to create the actual instance of that. Okay. All right, so that's there. Let's go ahead, and here is where all the fun comes in. We're going to call private static void refresh instance reference. Might as well make that public. I'm just going to call refresh instance reference in our constructor. And what that's going to do is we're just going to go ahead and say asset database dot find assets, and then I believe we want to say like t slash and then it's just going to be the type of this. So we're going to look for this, I believe. Oh, no, it's t colon, I think. And then we're going to go ahead and say string paths is equal to that, and then we have to do if paths dot length is greater than 0, then we're going to go ahead and else debug.log warning no that scriptable object found in the project will not be able to run some CSV unit tests. Okay. And then we have to do the fun thing, which is basically it's going to be this. Instance is equal to asset database dot load asset at path CSV parser test data followed by asset database dot GUID to asset path paths of 0, and I believe that is what I want to do. So let's go ahead and let that compile, and then we're just going to say if let's just debug.log instance is equal to null. Just make sure that that actually found it. So that should fire after it compiles. Cool. So that means that it found it, which means that we can get rid of this. Actually, I wonder if that means that I can do like asset database load. Do I have options for GUIDs? Asset path to GUID, try get GUID and locate file identifier. Nope. Okay. We'll let that go. We're going to come back down here and wrong thing. We're going to go ahead and go to our CSV parser unit tests. Cool. Let's go ahead and we're going to, let's see here. I'm trying to think of how to structure the unit tests so they'll actually be useful. We have obvious ones like, checking to see if we get nothing. I suppose we can check to make sure that our keys are correct. So let's go ahead and say like get keys, capital G. I don't know if I want to do test. It's redundant, I guess. They're all tests. So we're going to go ahead and test the CSV parser can properly parse a CSV's headers. Right, these are called headers. Get headers. That is the type that it's going to be checking for. Okay, so for this, we have to essentially, let's make a string. I'm going to just do this manually. So we're going to say string CSV is equal to this. And then we're going to go ahead and say header, this is going to be fun, header 01, header 02, header 03, and then we're going to do a new line, and then we're going to say value 01, 02 value 03. That's our CSV. We're going to go ahead and say r equal 3 and parse CSV. This is going to be get headers. And this is actually going to be dot length. Okay, so that should be a valid test case. And while I'm doing this, let's go ahead and I'm going to generate some real quick CSV tests. If I can get to it. Oof. Oof. Taking forever, man. I guess I can put this here. I'm going to go ahead and make a new Google Sheet. Okay. So let's go ahead and run those. Nice. Also, this is a fun thing that I've noticed in 2019. For some reason, it seems like the inspector for certain assets will, not certain, it seems like every asset, including folders and such, will occasionally bug out and show you this debug information, which is interesting, but all you have to do to fix it is just click off it and it seems to be fine. Okay, so that all seems to work pretty good. Let's go ahead and let's see here. So this will be CSV unit test sheets. Okay. We're going to go ahead and call this, like, let's rename this to numbers. Not that it really matters, I don't think. This will just be a basic sheet of numbers. So let's go ahead and say header 01. Let's just do like 5 values. Let's go ahead and delete the extras. Delete. And then let's go ahead and just do 01, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then I'm wondering if you'll actually smartly fill that in. Oh, good, you did. I don't know, let's just do that. So we'll go up to 100. Let's come down here and delete these rows. Let's go ahead and download this. So file, download as, separated values, show in folder. Just gonna go ahead and dump that in here. I guess that means we're gonna make this like a utility, which probably should go under here. Let's go ahead and move this. We'll say create folder data, create folder scripts. Okay, so that should be where we move it. Okay, clear that. All right, let's go ahead and assign our numbers here. And all we're going to do is we're going to copy this. Copy this. We're going to grab this, come down here. CSV general still is pretty much correct. I'm going to call this, I'm just going to move this up to here, I guess. Not that it matters. I also really should break these into their own individual components instead of having them be all part of one big thing, but whatever. So this is going to be called parse numbers. It's just going to be used to parse numbers. I was going to try to have it parse empty values, but I don't think I can export something like that. Inconvenient. All right, so we're going to call this tested CSV who actually can properly parse a CSV containing number values, I guess. pretty straightforward and boring. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say if CSV parser test utility dot instance is equal to null, then we're going to go ahead and say assert dot ignore. And what that does is it just means that if that data value is not, or if that data object does not exist in the project, then we're not going to run this test. We're just going to ignore it because we physically can't. It would null out if we tried that. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of this. And what we're going to do here is we're going to say parse, and it's going to be CSV parser test utility dot instance dot number test dot text, and its count should be equal to, what is this, 20, looks like. So let's go ahead and run those. Nice. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and create a couple of more test scripts just to make sure that everything works. So we're going to go ahead and say add a new sheet. We're going to call this like escaped we'll just call it escaped, I guess. Header 01. We'll do header comma 02. Header 03. Okay. Actually, let's do this. And then header 04. Okay. And with that, let's go ahead and go over here. This down one. Nope, down one. All right, I did that before too. Yeah, okay. So for these, we're gonna go ahead and have, I guess, pretty straightforward values. So this will be like test 01. Test 01A. I wonder if you'll actually increment. Nope. Should have known. 1B. Test 01C. Go ahead and just do this real quick. This is going to be test comma 02A. Test comma 02B. Test comma 02C. These are basically going to be the same thing. I just wanted to have more than one row. Let's go ahead and say, I wonder what it's going to try to do if I have a header. Well, no, it should work. So I'll have to run a test on a CSV that has headers but no content to make sure that that parses correctly, which should basically mean that it returns nothing, but I want to make sure. Okay, and then we're going to say test 03A, test 03B, test 03C. And then we're going to go ahead and say, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, fine. Then we're going to go ahead and say quote test 04A. Oops. That was not correct. There we go. And then test C, B. And I do want to have one more test actually, which is going to be this. I shouldn't have done that. I'll just do it over here. It's going to be header 05. Test 0. Ah, man, I don't know my B. There we go. All right, so I think that covers pretty decent amount. Covers our commas, covers our. Oh, it doesn't cover new line, of course. So we're gonna go ahead and insert one more, right? These I was just trying to get quotes in various various positions. So this has a quote at the end and a quote in the middle. This has a quote at the beginning and the end. This is a quote, two quotes in the middle, not on either side. So we're gonna go ahead and say header 05. Test 05A, test 04A, test 03, no, sorry, 5, C, can't, 5B, there we go. I think that's everything. Pretty sure those are the only real restricted characters are, I believe, new lines, commas, and quotes. I think everything else is fair game in CSVs. So let's go ahead, come down to here, delete rows. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and file, download this as a comma separated value sheet again, show in folder. Oops. Escaped values there. Get rid of both of these sheets because I don't need them. Okay, let's open this up. This is going to be our escaped test. I should probably tooltip these. Not that it really matters, but it's good. CSV of number values. Tip. CSV containing reserved chars like new line and comma. Line, new line, double quotes, and comma. Okay. Let's go back to our unit tests here. We're going to go ahead and say parse empty. I'm going to copy that. We're going to change this to like parse headers. Parse headers only? How about parse valueless headers? That's good, I guess. Tests if the CSV parser can properly parse a CSV containing headers but no values. And this is a little bit overkill, honestly, for my testing purposes, but like I said, it's good to have somewhat thorough unit tests going. Like I probably want to try to get to, I don't know, five, preferably 10, just so that I can have a pretty decent smoke test whenever I whenever I update a project. I can just like run through and just test everything. Okay, so for this, we're just going to go ahead and create our own CSV again. It's going to be basically this. We're just going to get rid of this value part. I think actually that would be enough. And yep, that's pretty much all we want to do. So its count should be 0. And let's go ahead and do this. We're going to paste that in. Wow, that's terrible. Parse valueless headers, including headers. Test of the CSV parser can properly parse the CSV containing headers, but no values when returning headers as well. How about this? Including headers in the output. That's probably better phrasing. That's a terrible phrasing, though, in general. So we're going to go ahead and say true, and that means that this should be 1. Okay. Let's see. Oh, man. Okay, let's go ahead and double assert. So this is going to be 3 and then 0 dot count. Okay. I think that will work. Okay. But that doesn't even do what I wanted to do initially. That was just like a side thing. Back down here. This is going to be for our escaped. So this will be parse escaped values. Can properly parse CSV containing values with escaped chars, like double quotes and commas. Okay, we're going to assert ignore here if the instance is null. Here's our escaped test. And for that, I think we just want to make sure that our output is 3. So we want to have 3 here. And then we also want to make sure that we assert dot r equal I guess we can hard code this because we know what it's going to be. Let's go ahead and grab this. Make this a list of dictionary. Oh, look at that! Really? Okay. Using system.collections.generic. Come back up here. List of dictionary of string and string values. Rows is equal to that. I'm going to say rows.count. And then we're going to say rows of 0 of this. Okay. So we want this to be I guess we'll grab from the middle here. So we'll make sure that all of these values are what we would expect. Let's see if I can get that into a nice copy format if I'm lucky. Ooh, so close. Okay. I believe that is... Oof. How many is that? So that's 1, 2. Is that really all it was? I guess it was 2, so yeah, okay. So that's new line, new line. New line, new line, I think. Okay. So we want this to be test B, which means that these are our headers, which is going to complicate things because of course it is. Yeah, I know. Okay, we're going to do this. New line, that should be correct. Okay, so it's going to be this for that header. It's going to be actually rows 1, I believe is what we want. Then we're going to go ahead and just copy this 5 times. So this should be test 2b, test 3b, and here's where it gets fun, because we start having to escape chars. Test 4b, which again requires escape chars. Test 5b, oh man. Yeah, did stupid things. Okay, let's change that real quick. Okay, file, download as, comma separated values. We're just going to go ahead and show an explorer. I know that you're not done. You're probably going to actually cause some problems. Escaped. Get rid of you. Go back to here. Okay, so these should be 6 and 6. Okay, let's go ahead and save this, and let's grab header, comma 2, header 0, 3, with our escaping, again, with, hold on, minor I have someone at the door. I will be right back. Sorry about that. All right, lost my groove here. So we were doing header 03, that's correct. Header 04 is correct. Gotta do one more because we have 6. Test 4B. Let's grab this. Here's test 5. Escape that. Escape that. Which goes into header 5. Escape and escape. And finally, header. Oh, right. Wait, did I wrap that? No, okay. So that's correct. And this is also correct. That's interesting. Okay. So let's go ahead and run that test. It should be correct. At least I'm assuming once I assign everything. Escape chars. Let's go ahead and clear that. Run these. Okay. Expected 0 but was 1. Open source code. Oh, I'm sorry. Ooh, wait. It was 1? Interesting. Okay. And expected 3, but was 0. How interesting. Huh. Okay. So CSV parser.parse CSV with that apparently was 1? Really now? Our escaped values at least worked, but for some reason this was not correct. I expected 0 but was 1 for valueless headers. Let's take a look at this real quick. So if we just go through and we parse, done parsing, not a thing. Oh. There we go. That's why. Okay. So. Oh, dear. Have to do this. Oh, dear. Okay. Gross. Okay. Well, we can probably ship this out to its own function. So let's go ahead and say there's going to be a private version of this. I'm going to say private static string get headers string CSV then list int start indexes list int end indexes. So what we're going to do here is we're essentially going to say string headers is equal to new string start indexes dot count. Okay. Basically just going to come back down up to here, back up to here. It's going to be this whole thing. Let's copy that. I'm just going to do that. Return headers. Okay. So we're going to go up to here again. We're going to shorten this to get headers. CSV start indexes, end indexes. All right, so that's that. And what we're going to do here now is we're going to say if headers dot length is equal to 0. I can't spell. How about this? Is not equal to 0 or include headers. And we're going to do that. Which means that I did just break that out for no reason, but whatever. That's fine. Oh, nope, I lied. Because I have to generate headers no matter what. Okay. So we're going to do the... Okay, we're going to say this and that, else. CSV start indexes, end indexes. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move this, paste that in there. So that means that, so if headers is equal to 0 and include headers, else I have to do an if here. So let's say if headers dot length is greater than 0. Okay. I guess that's what I have to do there. All right, let's try this again. Ta-da! Okay. Nice. So that all works. We did multiple asserts, which is actually something that I've not really done before. So it's kind of cool. I've never really tested that. So we can get rid of you and get rid of you, and we can save. So yeah, that means that parse. What was that? Parse escaped values is correct. Nice. So that might be a good place for us to stop. I don't know why it keeps reselecting. That was probably because it's just highlighted. So our CSV parser is basically done. And by basically, I mean I think it is done. There are clearly, though, some edge cases, which unit testing has helped us find. I would like to do one quick test comparing like the old CSV parser to the new CSV parser. So I'm going to create a massive data set real quick. So we'll just do like header. We'll make it very simple too. It's just going to be numbers. So I'll make this like 10 things long. And then we're just going to fill it up with tons of content. So let's just do that. Oh, you suck. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Followed by 11, 12. Oop. Ah! You won't give me anything good. And we're just going to fill up this entire freaking data set. I guess we'll just do 500. So we have 5,000. Let's go ahead and I'm going to download that. I'm curious to see how large that actually is because it's just numbers. So download as comma separated values. Can't be that big, right? 24 kilobytes. That's respectable. But we can go bigger. Let's go ahead and rename this to like massive. Let's just do size. Okay, we're going to grab all of this. I'm just going to go ahead and copy this. We're just going to keep going. So that's 1,001 lines that need to be parsed. So let's go ahead and download that. I'm guessing that just doubled our size. Yeah. That's not too bad. I would like to have a larger file to parse, but eh. All right, so let's go ahead and drag that in. We're going to do test data. This is going to be like tooltip, public text asset, size test is equal to null, CSV containing large amounts of basic information for basic data for testing parse time. How about this parse performance? There we go. That's better. Okay. And this is something I probably will actually want to do at runtime. And I might actually do this off air. Although I am curious to know how long it takes for this to really be parsed, because this is obviously it's all basic numbers, but it's about 50 kilobytes of data. I'm guessing the old parser would chug trying to do this because it's so many strings that it would have to create. It would have to create about 10,000 substrings. Where our current one, well, so the old parser would have created 10,000 and then 10,000 more, because it would have created. I'm sorry, no, it would have created 1,000, then created 10,000 strings from that 1,000 strings. I actually don't know. I'm curious to know what the performance difference is going to be. But I know that the old system was a lot more string heavy in the sense that it created strings all the time, not at the very end, which is what our new system does. So our new system will create 10,000 plus whatever the number of headers is, so 10. So 10,010 strings, that's all the strings that will be created in the new one. The old parser, I'm pretty sure, would have been like 10 times that amount, which is obviously not great for the resources. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and end it there. I'm going to do some performance testing and probably post the results on the Discord and on Twitter a little bit in like, I don't know, half an hour, I'm guessing. So, pretty good day, though. We didn't quite make it over to custom adventures. I got a little bogged down trying to really optimize the CSV parser and then do testing on it. But I am curious to see how the two parsers stack up to one another. I think that will be fun. So, yeah, announcements. Nothing really. Nothing really coming up. So I should be good. We should be on schedule for streaming next Tuesday. As a heads up, the 24th of April, which is, I believe, 2 weeks from this past Thursday, I have a local game dev meetup that I'm going to be going to, which means that I won't be doing my Devstream on that Thursday, as just a 2-week advanced heads up. But for the immediate coming week, we should be good. All right, that's a pretty good place to stop for the day. So, as always, I want to thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time.